Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Dave and Jose Unfiltered, episode number 6. And that episode was actually recorded last Friday. And this is now 6 days later, Thursday, July 30th. And I am yet again struggling to get the editing done so we can actually have this episode premiere in time on YouTube tonight. But it's okay. This is the last thing I have to do. Just have to slide that in there, and there it goes into YouTube. This was a great conversation. You're really going to enjoy this. And I think you're going to feel like Dave and I did at the end of this conversation. We were thinking, well, we got to have a part 2. We got to ask Mehrasa to come back, because Mehrasa, Alizadeh, gave us not only was fascinating, but it was a really fun conversation that gave you a lot of insight into what her research is like, of course, her ideas on what she's doing with her research is like, and just her life. It's a very unique situation that she's in as a Middle Eastern woman, trilingual Middle Eastern woman, living in Japan, navigating the things that she has to do, the things that she has to juggle as a researcher, as an instruction consultant, and just an all-around good person who's willing to do podcasts like this for free. So enough talk from me. Thank you very much. I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. Okay, I got to be ignorant because I am. Mehrasa Alizadeh.
Yes.
Really?
Thank you.
I got it?
Yes, you got it right. Yes.
That's the correct. Can I try that?
Go ahead, Dave.
Mehrasa Alizadeh.
Yes. There you go. Brilliant.
Okay, but wait. I want a comparison here. I want you to say it.
Okay. So it depends on which language I'm speaking in. So if I wanted to pronounce it originally,
yes,
it would be Mehrasa Alizadeh. But like you see an H in my name, right?
Right.
Mehrasa. And that H is pronounced in Persian. A lot of people, when I tell them it's pronounced, assume it's like a kh sound or the French R sound, but that's not the case. It's just a regular h sound.
Yeah,
but
the
this
aspirated
combination,
H.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but this combination does not exist. I mean, this syllable structure does not exist in English. So when I want to pronounce my name, tell my name to non-Persians, non-Iranians, I would usually leave out the H and just say my name is Mehrasa to just make their life easier.
Okay, because I was just about to actually try to attempt it, but I thought I'll just ask her experience. Like when goofballs like me try to pronounce your name properly, do we just sound like dumber than we usually do, or?
Not at all.
Okay, I'm going to try. I'm going to try. Okay, Mehrasa Alizadeh.
Yes, close enough. Yes.
Oh, you're
brave.
No, you're just
brave.
You're just being very, very nice.
Yeah.
I met you, I believe at let's see, I think it was the Osaka All Day conference. So it was an amazing conference, and I met you there. And you're in the Osaka area.
Right.
And what else did I remember? I remembered, for one thing, that was really impressive, that I met a researcher. Not necessarily an instructor, not a uni professor, but a researcher. And I don't meet many researchers who are not Japanese in Japan. So tell us, just really quickly, what do you research, and what's that like, being a researcher?
Thanks, Jose. Thank you, Dave. Before I start, let me just tell you that my background is in teaching English as a foreign language. That's what I got my master's in back at my home university in Tehran before moving to Japan. But then after coming here, I had lots of ups and downs, and like my career path changed a little bit. I was into language teaching. I've been a member of JOLT and other language teaching associations for a couple of years now, and I'm still active within them. But I just happened to do my graduate degree, my PhD, in a graduate school not related to language education. That was in the original plan, by the way. When I came to Japan on the MEXT scholarship to do a PhD here, first you come here and you're given a period of time to study Japanese as a research student, or what they call kinkyusei here. And it was during that period that I found out the school I was planning to enter also at Osaka University, I mean, that graduate school just had so high requirements of Japanese proficiency that it was impossible for me to pass the test. And I only had one chance to take it. So I
Mm.
didn't want to lose it and to have to go back home. So what I did was to look for a different graduate school, a different supervisor, with the help of my former supervisor, of course, and his support. And I ended up doing my degree at a non-related, like not related graduate school. It was the grad school of information science and technology. And you
Ah.
can, yeah, so you can imagine that like the people, when I first was introduced to this lab, because in uh, the fields of science and engineering here in Japan, usually departments are organized into laboratories, right? So there
Okay.
is some sensei lab, another one, and then that's how the structure is like. But then I entered one where people would do research mostly on developing augmented reality and virtual reality
Mm.
systems, or creating graphical user interfaces or games and things like that. Totally outside my field of
Mm.
expertise.
You'd never done anything like that before.
Yeah, not at all. I was a call enthusiast the whole time,
Okay.
and I was interested in e-learning and call back in Iran too.
Mhm.
But when I wanted to do such kind of research there were lots of technical issues and hurdles. So it wasn't just easy to do that kind of research, at least back then, like
Can I
5 or
ask
6
how
years
long
ago.
ago? Sorry, how long ago was back then?
Yeah, good question. Thank you, Dave. So I came to Japan in 2014. So you can say that was like about 6 years ago.
Hmm.
Okay.
And I even started doing a PhD back in Iran, in fact, just as parallel with this Japanese mixed scholarship program I was following, because this is quite a long process and it usually
Mm.
takes about a year. I found out about this program. Just to give you a bit of more details, after I traveled to Japan to attend a conference. And then I went back and I heard from a friend of a friend, in fact, who had come to Japan on the same scholarship. And I was always the whole time thinking of going on a study abroad program. I was never planning to do my PhD back in Iran. But
Mm.
then just because I wanted to have a backup plan and to make sure things wouldn't fail, like living in Iran, you can't always be sure that you can pursue your plans.
I
Mhm.
hope you don't
There's,
mind us talking about that a little later, but I'm gonna write that down right now.
yeah,
Let's talk
Well,
right,
about
you, well,
this.
well,
sure.
you're bringing a question to my mind, which, sorry to interrupt your flow, but
No, no problem.
you've obviously have experience in higher education in Iran, and you have experience in higher education in Japan.
Sure.
Is there a big difference in terms of how things are moving forward, or for students? Like, would you have been able to achieve your goals in Iran if you stayed, or was it easier to do that
Um,
in Japan?
I could do my PhD and complete the program there, but there were, I would say, a couple of problems. Like, I would never be able to get research funding, especially as
Hmm.
a student. There's
Hmm.
not much financial support. And a lot of times, people who want to do certain kinds of research would have to start um, going outside their school. Like, for instance, I hear if people want to do, for example, eye tracking research. There's no language related graduate school that provides you with eye trackers. So you would have
Hmm.
to go to some, say, I don't know, medical center or something
Hmm.
along the lines of that in
Right.
order to be able to get the equipment that you need.
Hmm.
So those kinds of hardware, software kind of problems or infrastructure, if I may call that. Plus, I would never want to work in Iran as a faculty member. I just couldn't fit into the system, accept the dress code, you name it.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
on that point, Marasa, I just want to ask something just for my own curiosity. You couldn't get eye tracking software, or you couldn't get high level hardware like that, not because the government wouldn't allow you to use it, but because it wasn't there, or which was it? They didn't have the hardware, or they just didn't want to give you access to it? Which
They
do you think
didn't
it was?
have it. Yeah, they didn't have it. It's just that it's not available everywhere, or many people would just give up on the idea of doing such kind of research if they are from a field like mine, just because it's too much trouble. You have to deal with too many people, go through too much bureaucracy. So it's just not worth it sometimes. But there's a couple of people who might be persistent enough to or resilient enough to go for that.
Just if
Yeah.
I can, I just have a quick follow up to that.
Yeah.
Is that because of the sanctions, or is it because of budgets, or because the disinterest from a theocratic government to actually obtain that kind of theocratic universities? There's so many questions I want to ask here, but like it's really interesting. Like eye tracking software itself is even hard to obtain in Iran.
Yeah, it's in many cases, just like to tell you, the example of eye tracking is just one example, right? One instance. There's many other types of research you would want to do that you wouldn't be necessarily able to, or you couldn't have it at the standards, like high standards that it's done in other countries. So I would say it's a mixture of all those reasons or many others that you haven't brought up. Um, Budget is one important issue.
Right.
Yeah, so universities do not really have enough funding, and if they do, they don't always allocate it to research.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Right.
one problem. And
Mm.
then as a graduate student, you're probably the last person who qualifies for
Right.
any money, because even in many cases the faculty will not be able to get the funding either, so you won't be on the priority list for funding at all. And if you're lucky enough and your professor or supervisor is able to get the funding, you may be able to use that for your research partly. But I don't remember having used any money from the university for the research projects I'd done before. It would always be my own money if there was like any
Wow.
money that would
Mm.
go into the thing. And we would almost never, like if it was an experiment and we had participants, there was no remuneration. We would never pay the participants for like reimburse them for the contribution they did, but we
Mm.
always almost like I've never seen an experiment here or a study where the students or the participants are not paid. Unless you're doing action research, it's your own students, then that's a different
Mm.
story. But if you're doing a formal experimental study, at least at our university and maybe many other research universities I know of here in Japan and in other countries, you would see that in lots of papers too. They say like we paid this much or
Mhm.
gave a gift card to the
Mhm.
participants for their contribution. But that wasn't possible in Iran. So
Okay.
money is one issue. Then there's a lot of I don't know, um, hierarchy maybe.
Oh,
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
can we
So
say then that you're happier, or you feel that you are um, you're grateful that you could actually take this career step in Japan as opposed to having been in a situation where you'd have to try to struggle to do it in Iran? That you're happy that you made your way here then?
absolutely. It's not
Mm.
just academia. I would say my quality of life is totally different here. So it's there are social aspects, there's academic aspects, so many layers of
Mm.
life
Okay.
has changed here. And
Well,
if I went to another country too, perhaps, I mean, somewhere outside Iran in a free country.
well,
Could
we
I ask?
definitely want to talk to you about that. Sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
Could I ask what would have been the biggest hurdle then for you to leave Iran and then come and study in Japan? What was that like?
Yeah. So before embarking on the plan to come to Japan, I
Mm.
was thinking of going to the US or Canada. That's what most people do in
Canada.
Iran. Yay! The US too.
Not that we do
Uh,
this a lot in Canada, but
No.
okay, Okay.
All right. So yeah, just like everybody, what comes to your mind is you speak English, so you want to go to an English-speaking country, right?
Right. Yep.
So nobody these days, I think more and more people because more and more people want to get out of the country, Japan is also on the list. But back then, like a couple of years ago, when things were not this bad and not everybody wanted to get out. I mean, people
Mm.
who just wanted to live a normal life would prefer to be back at home with their family. Then Japan would not be a top destination, especially for students.
Hmm.
It was maybe a few decades ago when lots of Iranians came to Japan for work. Um,
Hmm.
but then for study, I remember when I thought of coming to Japan, a lot of people would say, Japan? Like, is it really a good destination for study abroad? Are the universities really high ranking and stuff? That's what people had in mind
Mm.
when I told them about my plan to move to Japan. But then the thing is, I learned about this opportunity to come here, and it took me a while. It was the process was kind of straightforward, and they didn't require any Japanese to take part, like to apply for the program. And I knew good English, so that gave me an opportunity to pass the test, which was just a language test. They had it
Okay.
in Japanese and in English,
Hmm.
and it was easy for me to uh, yeah, do the English part well. So that's what gave me the chance to win the scholarship.
So this would be considered a bit of a brain drain in a sense.
It is
The
totally
brightest the brightest are leaving their home country and coming to foreign countries, Japan in this case, and you're doing your research and your work here, not in your home country. So Japan has won your brain, and Iran
thank
has
you.
lost. Now, can I like? Do you frequently go back to Iran? Is it easy to get back and forth for you?
I've only been back once in 5 years, and that was last October. But my parents, I've been lucky enough to have them visit me almost every year. They haven't,
Oh,
they were actually planning to come here this October too, but that's
hmm.
just not a
Right.
possibility
Yeah.
with the COVID situation.
So
So yeah, um, I don't travel back just because my parents have been here, and honestly, I don't dare go back anymore.
Why?
because
Yeah. What? Yeah.
Yeah.
What? Oh, whoa. What the? Why? Why? Why?
Yeah, I've never, I even didn't want to go back last year, but it's just
hmm.
that I haven't seen my family, not even my brother in 5 years and
Hmm.
relatives. So everybody was kind of like expecting me to go back at least once, but I know that's probably going to be my last time ever going back.
Ever?
Not, I would say so at the moment, just
Hmm.
because first off, I don't feel safe going back. Um, you've heard about this incident with the jet downing the
Sure. The
right
missile
yeah
Yeah.
over Tehran.
Yeah.
right yeah so that is happening, that has been happening, then similar airplane crashes and accidents happening. That's just one aspect. Then
Hmm.
again, getting into the country, I wouldn't honestly feel safe. I feel safer going through immigration in other countries than at my own.
Can
And
I?
I
Would
yeah.
that be because they look at you with suspicion? She's coming back from Japan, and why the suspicion? What would they suspect that you would have been doing?
Right. I am not connected to any kind of activist stuff, but still, as a very ordinary person, I wouldn't
Hmm.
feel safe going back because they can sometimes make troubles for you or, in extreme cases, arrest you at the
Hmm.
airport.
Okay.
And uh, even though I haven't done anything, I've got
Right.
my record all clear. I just wouldn't feel safe going back. Going through immigration last time was also a lot of stress for me and my family. And also getting out of the country on departure too, that could be
Right.
very stressful. And let me
Hmm.
tell you a very, like, it's a very sad story because,
Oh.
here in Japan, in Japan, we are not Japanese nationals. So if we are not, even if we are on this, what do you call? We have our own
Permanent
PR.
residency.
Yeah, yeah. Even with a PR, you would sometimes, like every couple of years, I guess, have to go to the immigration bureau to renew your card, right? So in a sense, you would every once in a while have to go to the place. That's natural. We are immigrants here. But
Mm.
then when I went back to Iran, they made me go to the immigration bureau there. And I'm like,
Mm.
what the heck? Like, where am I a citizen?
Yeah. Okay.
You had to go to immigration
Yeah. You know
on
what?
return at the airport.
Yeah, because
And
they
what
want
did
to.
what was the process? Did they ask you like, well, where were you born? And you'd go, Iran. Uh,
what were you
I know.
no.
what were you doing outside of Iran?
That kind
No,
of
they
thing?
were not interrogating me, but
Okay.
it's just an like an office paperwork thing
Yeah.
where you have to is it register your entry or departure? I'm not, maybe departure. That's
Mhm.
what the guy at the immigration in the airport told me. Like you
Okay.
have to go. He told me go to the passport office, but I found out later that the place my dad took me to, and we asked people about that beforehand, was not the passport office, but the immigration office. So
Mm.
it was
Wow.
so shocking to me. I'm like,
That is
I
bizarre.
should be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just totally have the feelings of a stateless person.
Um, if I can just follow up on that, I mean, I want to eventually ask you about your research and stuff like that because we're already on the
Yeah.
topic anyway. Um, where do you think it would be more difficult? I'm sure that this is one of the things that I'm discovering more
Hmm.
as I talk to more people and I'm meeting more friends. This is one of the great things about this pandemic is that my avenue for meeting different people and from different walks of life, like you, has really expanded. And and I think as that horizon has expanded, my perspective has expanded, and I'm coming to realize I thought I understood that it was more difficult to be a woman in
Hmm.
life, much less in specific areas of life or specific areas of career. But
Yeah,
being a woman in Japan as opposed to being a woman in Iran, again, Japan wins in that sense.
absolutely. Yeah.
Really?
I see lots of these posts or talks from friends saying that, oh, Japan, do better, Japan. And they've been like not appreciating how things are here, which I understand because life is a matter of comparison. You compare it with what you have experienced so far. And
Mm.
anything I've experienced so far is much worse than this. So I always have something at least to appreciate.
What have you had any kind of bad reception to the fact that you're from the Middle East, you're a woman, and we, or I would probably say, or at least my perception is that academia in Japan is very conservative. Have you, or do you have any stories that you'd like to share about what are the difficulties of being a woman, a female researcher in Japan?
Sure. Since I came here as a student and I had the time to get myself known to people around me, I would say that I never have had this experience with people who know me in person, or
Mm.
the people around me have never done any acts of discrimination
That's
or
good.
against me. Yeah, I've been very lucky with that, and I think it's the safe environment I've been blessed with. But I have experienced this a lot when it comes to um, going on academic trips. Let's say um, any place I want to go to, almost all countries that we target for conferences would require me to apply for a visa.
Mhm.
Whereas my Japanese colleagues or the rest of the people or like non-Japanese colleagues I would usually go with don't ever think about this requirement, or
Mm.
it's never a problem for them, right?
Right.
So I've certainly experienced this in getting visas and going through immigration. Like it's so awful when you're with a group of people and then you are the one
Mhm.
who is taken out of the line and said, oh, you have to wait.
That would be due to your nationality, though, right?
Yeah, totally. So the thing is, I've had this like extreme case in Hong Kong. Nothing, I love Hong Kong, nothing against that, but it's just part of our immigration process. To enter the country, we have to be interviewed at the airport.
Mm.
And I was traveling there last year. Yeah, it was last summer, September, was it? Yeah. When a colleague and I were going there. She was on a different flight, a Japanese colleague, a former like a professor of mine too. And then she went ahead, and of course, she had a very smooth entry. And
Mm.
unlike her, I was stopped, and I had no idea why. But then when I asked them, they were kind and polite to explain to me that as part of the process of my entry into the country, I need to be interviewed beforehand. And they, like,
Hmm.
I was planning to stay in Hong Kong for maybe 3 4 days, but
Mm.
they interviewed me for about an hour at the airport. Yeah, and they asked me all kinds of questions. And I was going there on a tourist visa, first off, because if
Okay.
you say you want to go on a business visa, they mostly require more documents. So
Okay.
sometimes to save myself the trouble of doing that, especially for Asian countries, which
Mm.
I thought would be easier to get in, but Hong Kong is a different story,
Sure,
apparently.
sure.
Yeah.
Mm.
I didn't know that because I had done this for China, for instance, in the past, and it wasn't quite, yeah, it wasn't a
That's
big
interesting.
trouble.
No,
So
very
Yeah,
getting
but
interesting.
in
into
Hong Kong,
China, getting into mainland China was easier, less trouble for you than getting into Hong Kong.
yeah,
That's interesting. What year was this? Is last year?
last year, yeah. And
Last year.
China
Huh.
was 2 years ago. Although I've heard some horror stories from other Iranian friends entering China saying that they've been stopped and asked so many questions. So maybe I was just lucky enough. And you know what? Sometimes it depends on the officers, right? So you never know who is
And
going
they
to.
knew that you were part of this academic entourage. They knew that you were with that professor who went through smoothly, right?
Yeah, although like I mentioned,
Your
I had
visa.
applied for the for a
The
Mm.
tourist
tourist
visa.
visa. Yeah, so this is what
Oh.
is really annoying to me here, and I do plan to solve this problem in the long term by obtaining a Japanese nationality, hopefully someday.
Mm.
Nationality.
Okay.
Nationality.
Yes, yes,
That-
totally.
That's a big
Oh,
step. That's a big
that
step.
Yeah.
is a big step. That takes an awful lot of work. Have you've got your
Yeah.
permanent residency though?
I
Residency though,
will
right?
be able to apply for that in starting from August because you know they have this new type of visa for people with like highly skilled professional
Right.
visa, Kodo Jinzai or Kodo Senmonshoku visa, and that visa is for especially if you have a PhD degree that gives you quite a lot of points and
Hmm.
it makes it easier for you to meet the minimum number of points needed to apply for this first off for this what's that, highly skilled
S-
professional visa.
Right.
Yeah, and after doing that, if you get 80 points uh, out of a total of there's no limit to the total,
Yeah.
then you would be able to apply for permanent residency in a year. So
Wow.
mine, like 1 year, is going to be complete in August. So
Okay.
right now I'm on a 5 year visa, although I just started working. So because I'm on a 1 year contract which renews, if I didn't have this opportunity, it would mean I would have to just be on this professor Kyoju visa every year
Mm.
and renew it, which is a lot of trouble, especially given that, like right now, because of the pandemic, we're all stuck at home. We don't travel, go to
Hmm.
conferences. But then if I wanted to go to other countries, it would mean they would look at my visa period here in Japan too, right? So if it's
Hmm.
about to expire, they would say, "Oh, you are not stable even in the country where you're living.
Mm,
So how would you?" I mean, it makes sense kind of for
mm.
them to pick on that. But anyways,
You
it would mean trouble. But luckily, I at least have this 5 year visa now.
you mentioned you're on a 1 year contract.
Yes.
What are you doing?
So I've
What?
been in the first place employed for a project, and that's a mixed funded project. And as long as the project goes on for maybe hopefully at least 2 3 more years, it started 2 years ago. It's like a
Hmm.
5 6 year thing.
Okay.
I would hopefully be able to continue this, but then because the budget is decided on every year, they can't just give me a long-term contract. But
Okay.
yeah, as long as this thing goes on, I
Hmm.
know that I have the position, like they wouldn't be looking for somebody else.
Hmm.
As I've learned about the work and we are just doing this collaboratively together. So it makes sense to continue it and I like it. But yeah, in a few years time, again, I'd have to be job hunting again
Okay. Yeah.
or hopefully this one, by the way, I found it through my professors. So I'm sure for the next round, I would have other colleagues to help me too. So that's one advantage of doing a degree here that
Hmm.
allowed me to be in touch with other Japanese professors who obviously, because it's their country, it's everything is their own university, they have more influence and more contacts, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, in that sense, I've been very lucky. But my job would probably be much more difficult, especially as a non-native speaker, if I wanted to just find a language teaching job per se here.
Right.
Now more people know me, but when I first came here and I
Hmm.
didn't have as many people in my network, that wasn't easy. Yeah.
Right. So you are working, and you're working at Osaka University, and you're doing research in.
Yeah. The project that I'm working on, it has a long name, but we kind of informally call it the Society 5.0 project. And to tell you more about this, this is not just the name of our project, but it's a concept put forward by the Japanese government, which refers to the new society where artificial intelligence is mixing into our lives, right? So we moved on from society 4.0 in the Japanese way of like classifying it, which was like the information society, right?
I
Hmm.
didn't get that memo, but okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know
So
that's what we
there's
did. Okay.
yeah, there's society probably 1.0 is like hunting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
Long
there's
that.
some
That's
stages
where it
there.
starts. Yes.
we're
And so
we're
still,
still we're still all into the society 1.0
yeah.
1 point something. Right?
I think
Yeah.
I'm in a
Try
beta
try.
mode. I'm in
Right.
0.97. Yeah.
No.
That's where they want to.
Yeah. And then 2.0 is agricultural society.
Yeah.
3
Yeah.
is what's it?
Industrial
Industrial. Yes. 4 is information, and then
information.
5
Okay.
is
Wow.
artificial intelligence.
Okay.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
so you're
So
on the leading edge of societal technological potential change.
not that I know much about it, but I'm trying to be a little part of it.
Okay.
Well, tell
Okay.
us about it. Tell us about it. Like, what
Sure,
are you working
sure,
on?
sure. So when people hear the word artificial intelligence, it's kind of a broad concept, right? So they may
Hmm.
Yes.
not quite know what it looks like when you apply it to education. But then specifically, there's two types of technologies, machine learning and computer vision, which I think these days are hearing more and more about, especially machine learning. I've seen some presentations by colleagues on that too, within JOLT or other language teaching associations. And that is where you try to use pattern recognition and automatic classification to be able to make sense of a huge amount of educational data that you
Mm.
collect from learners.
Yeah.
Especially these days when more and more people are turning to e-learning and online learning, started with the pandemic. I think
Mm-hmm.
this will be also enforced in the future, and it's already been in many other countries, people even on campus taking fully online courses or blended courses. So
Mm-hmm.
um, there's a lot of information and data out there, but as a teacher, you wouldn't have an easy job of looking at all those manually and trying to make sense of them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what technology is slowly enabling us to be able to do. That is what the techie side would help us with. But then as teachers, we're in the end the ones who need to make decisions and
Mm-hmm.
to try to see how to use that data, that information to inform our teaching, to be able to better give better feedback to our students, to support them, to scaffold the learning process.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that what we're doing at the moment, the projects that we're involved in have to do with the one we call the e-learning project, in which people are taking a blended course, not on language learning, but on computer science, like informatics
Okay.
basics, for especially for first year undergraduate students. So the
Mm-hmm.
whole incoming cohort at our university, which is about one whole class, in fact, like 3,000 or 3,500 students
Yeah.
would be taking a course which was last year blended, this year fully online. And
Mm-hmm.
then
Hmm.
we didn't do any experiments this year, but last year we tried to use multimodal learning analytics, like data that you collect through sensors from
Mm-hmm.
students. And in particular, as they were doing the online coursework, within a laboratory setting, we would be collecting eye tracking data or heart rate plus, what else did we do? yeah, the video capture of the facial expressions plus the
Hmm.
screen capture. So
No skull
several
caps?
modes. No, 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 no.
No, no, really. I was
No
serious. Were you
EEG.
actually
Yeah,
doing?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, okay.
Yeah,
No skull
there's
caps. Okay.
yeah, no EEG in our case, but we did use, which I forgot to mention, seat pressure mats. So
Hmm.
they're like small cushions that
Oh,
you
you want to
play.
see if you're shifting around
Yeah,
uncomfortably or something?
Right.
yeah. This could
And
be used in like this is used in healthcare too, like rehabilitation and other
mhm.
fields as well. But in our case, it would probably well be a sign of stress, wakefulness also sometimes. So if you're falling asleep while you're studying at
Start
the
to lean
computer,
forward.
Right.
yes, right. So this the
I'm
facial
afraid they might.
expressions too.
Geez, that if they do that with teachers, I'll be fired pretty.
I'm afraid they might take my seat pressure data and say, "Wow, this guy's really nervous." When what's really happening is I got to go pee, but I got to finish this test too. So, I'm sure you factor out your control factors like that. This is fascinating. Okay, keep
Sure.
going. So you've
Sure,
got all
sure.
this
There's a
data.
lot of, yeah, like you mentioned, there's a lot of data cleaning, as they call it, to do
Yeah.
after collecting this kind of
Yes.
massive data. Yeah,
Right.
sure. So that's part of it. And then because other than me, I think everybody else in the project, there's one colleague who is an expert in educational technology, but then the rest of the people are completely on the techie side. So they're in the fields of machine learning and computer vision. And to tell you like how, for instance, from video data, we would be able to estimate people's engagement or their concentration on the content and their wakefulness. So there's these types of platforms or programs that enable you to automatically detect. Maybe this I could show in a picture later to give you a better idea, but I don't have one prepared in advance.
Okay,
Um,
take your time.
yeah, but I'll just try to be
Yeah,
explaining
sure.
it
Okay.
visually. Right. So
Okay.
there's
This is gonna be fun. I'm gonna enjoy
yeah.
watching this.
So imagine you see me that like this is my face capture as
Yeah.
I'm studying, and then the system would be able to automatically recognize what they call facial landmarks, the main points on your face, like the face line here, and then your eyes, and it would be able to calculate how open your eyes are, for
Mm-hmm.
instance,
Hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
what's in case of your body, also the joints are automatically detected, and then how your posture is, or whether you're leaning forward, and doing any transition or rotation or anything could be all calculated. And
And
that is one area we are trying to focus on is estimating learner wakefulness. So before they fall asleep as they're studying, if we capture their face data
Then again,
real time,
yeah.
we would be able to figure out, oh, like
right.
this person's about to fall asleep, they're drowsy.
So
Yeah,
you're
we
looking.
could. Sorry, Dave. Go.
So you're looking for thousands and thousands of samples of what a student looks like just before they're about to doze off. Is that what you're
Right. That
doing? And then you can.
yeah. So for in a narrower sense, yeah, you would be doing that on an individual level. But then if
Right.
your system is trained enough to be able
Right.
to do this and to generalize the kind of
Yes.
patterns that it recognizes to the
Mm.
population, then you would be able to use your developed system for any other learner, and
Right.
then be hopeful that it will estimate their wakefulness accurately enough. It's not going to be 100% accurate
Right.
with any
Mm.
AI system that you develop. There's always error, just like
Mm.
in case of humans, right? Human
Yeah.
judgment can have errors too,
Right.
and so does machine judgment.
But the
So
larger your the larger your database, the
yeah,
less error you would have.
yeah, and then also the structure of your system, what you develop, is also
Right.
another determining
So
factor.
what are they going to do with this information? Then give you a little jolt when like you're just about to fall
No,
asleep.
somebody will come along and poke you in the ear. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I gotta get back
Yeah.
to work. Okay.
He's just about to
Right.
doze off. It's time for an
Poke him
electric
in the ear.
charge.
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. Then that's where the human computer interaction part and the user interface comes in, which is
Mr.
another
Zuto, you're
side
about to fall asleep.
side of the
Soft landing. No, no. Sorry.
no worries.
What's interesting about this? Sorry to railroad the conversation, but last year I was teaching a TOEFL class, and once they finished the TOEFL test, we had another 3-4 weeks of lesson time left. So we did an online AI course, an introduction
Yeah,
to AI. So I'm partially following what you're saying because
great.
I kind of have a little bit of, and it's like it's so interesting.
It
It's
is
so
Yeah,
fascinating.
fascinating.
it
Yeah.
is.
Marasa, your
Yeah.
part in doing the research, then you guide all of these totally geeky, nerdy, computer-oriented people, and you tell them, well, in a classroom that is a good idea. In a classroom that wouldn't be. So you're kind of the educational side. You consult them on what teachers do. Then.
Right, that's
Mm.
true. Although I'm not the only person, like I mentioned before, there's one other colleague who also specializes in e-learning
Hmm.
and HCI, human computer interaction.
Mm.
So we are the two ones with experience in education. And yeah, that's where our role comes in, especially mine. And then I would also help with running experiments, which I had to learn in a
Far
very
out.
short time last year. So like I just started off working April 1st, and then in 2 weeks or so, 2 3 weeks, like end of toward the second half of the first month, we our experiments started, and I had to learn how to run all of these. And even like running all those sensors and making sure that they're collecting data wasn't
Mm.
an easy job for me at first. But
No, no.
I think if we do this again this year, I would definitely feel more confident about that. So yeah, there was a
So,
lot of learning, a very steep learning curve.
Mm.
okay, so have you come? You've been at this, what I think? Did you say 4 years?
uh, in Japan, you mean, or
Well, this
working?
project, Society
Uh-huh.
5.0, how long has this
It's
been going on now?
It started just a few months before I
Oh, I'm
started
sorry.
working. Yeah, no, no worries.
Okay,
I was talking about the whole like length of the project from also from now on.
okay,
But it started in, I would say, November 2019, and then
okay.
I graduated at the end of that school year, March 20, no, oops, sorry, that was 2018 because I graduated in March 2019.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, have you at this point in the project come up with any kind of conclusions that are pointing you in the direction of, oh, we never thought about this, but this is really, really interesting. Oh, we've got preliminary conclusions telling us this about HCI and how it can be used, or a surprising finding. Have you got anything yet that you could say could be reported in terms of the data that you've at least sifted through so far?
Right. So I would say that in terms of learner alertness or engagement, yeah, we have found out that in our university, for instance, the data that we collected from the students, we found that as they keep going on, depending on the content and how interesting that is, of course, the level of engagement and interest of the students could differ, definitely. But
Hmm.
then there's one thing that maybe our findings cannot always be generalized to other universities, is that our students have been doing a relatively good job in terms of doing the online coursework. So once when we were studying wakefulness, for instance, we would be more interested in having videos in which students would doze off, right? But
Mm.
we didn't have as many of those. Like it would take 3 4 videos, like 1 hour of studying online for the students before they fall asleep. So
Mm.
that is one area that we are trying to tackle for our next experiments, because if we want to be able to estimate people's engagement or concentration or wakefulness, we would have to have actual samples of people showing those symptoms, right?
Mm.
So, which may be sometimes a little bit, I don't know if I should call it ethically
Yeah,
incorrect,
Right.
because yeah,
questionable.
Y-
yeah, yeah,
you
it's
want to
questionable.
induce the response of sleepiness, which is technically you don't want them to be sleepy as students,
Yeah,
but for your research they need to be sleepy to get the
yeah,
data that you're trying to collect, which is
right.
kind of
Well,
But then you know
let them
what?
sit in on my class. They'll
yeah.
get
Well,
sleepy. Don't worry.
No,
Yeah.
no way. I'm sure that
um,
wouldn't happen.
can I
Uh,
bring around? Can I ask a question? Like,
sure.
since this is Society 5.0, you guys have been doing the online learning as of at least a year ago, but then in 2020, spring 2020, I don't know about Osaka University, but the university I work at went 100% online. So did you
Yeah.
find yourselves changing your approach or
Yeah.
getting up to speed with now we have the whole body of students who are doing online learning. Did that
Yeah.
give you more data? Did it give
Did it
you
give you more opportunities?
Right. So, in fact, this change, we have also gone fully online for this semester and maybe also for next semester as well.
Right.
But it was just like in a very short period of time, like
Mhm.
other universities, we found out about this quite late. So we didn't run any experiments in this semester.
Mm.
Everything has been on hold because in most cases we are doing user experiments, meaning that we are dealing with human participants, and the
Right.
COVID situation, just like it started and hit everybody so hard, was very difficult to arrange for things. But we are planning to do stuff online as well. Say, for instance, collect data. One other project we're working is collaborative problem solving. And this, we've seen other examples of previous research done online, fully online, people like
Mm.
interacting in an environment like Zoom, for instance, and then they were supposed to be collaborating online together. Those examples were not from language learning fields, although that can easily be applied to the field of language learning. I'm sure many of you have done these breakout rooms with
Mhm.
Oh
students
yeah.
in Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, one goal of that project was to be able to enable the teacher to monitor more groups as they do
Mm.
collaborative learning. Just like in a regular, like face-to-face classroom, if you're giving pair work or group work to your students, you wouldn't be able to watch everybody, right?
Right.
Right.
So one goal of this project would be to, in the end, like developing a visualization system which would tell the teacher potentially the groups that need support. So the teacher would be
Hmm.
able to go there and support them. So yeah, that would be the end goal. But to get there, there's a lot of hurdles we've been going through because there's previous work on people doing these open-ended design tasks collaboratively, where they would be doing what do you call physical computing tasks in which
Mhm.
they would be programming a robot, for instance, in groups.
Yeah.
And that is a pretty much like time consuming task. It takes over 1 hour, and then people would be definitely at some point distracted from the collaborative process, right?
Mm.
We have done this in case of a language learning task in which
Uh-huh.
people were supposed to say they were given a bunch of shuffled cards, and we had asked them to arrange them into several stories. But we have found that unlike that previous study where only the physical like movements of the students were labeled in order to make an estimate of their level of activity, that is not very applicable to the case of language learning, because obviously this spoken
Mhm.
aspect of the thing is very important. Idea sharing is an important part of it.
Mm.
So we are still at the process of tackling this issue, and we haven't yet found a very good way around it. Because one way would be to analyze the speech, right? And that is something that is
Mhm.
being done already. It's quite labor intensive, and we don't want to go through that very same process. So we're trying to come up with a more like better or more efficient, novel process to enable the teachers to get an
Hmm.
idea of how groups are going about collaborative problem solving or collaborative learning together, and to enable them to monitor and give feedback to the students in a better way. Yeah, so these aspects of the research, I think we'll be doing more starting from now or from next semester, better say,
Mhm.
because just this past semester, things happened and changed so abruptly that we were not prepared for collecting data. But
Yeah,
um,
we know.
but to tell you, yeah, even like turning this whole class on basics of informatics, I told you,
Mhm.
for the
Hmm.
whole like incoming group of first year students to fully online was a big trouble for my colleagues.
Okay.
Um, yeah, they had prepared everything for a blended class just like
Right.
a month
Right.
or so
Right.
before the class
Yeah.
started,
Sure.
Mm.
and they had to, it's like there's classes where programming, some simple like Python programming would be taught in person in the class, and turning
Right.
that online was
Mhm.
How
a lot of
long?
trouble.
How long do you think before either your research can start to really get somewhere and start to really nail down its
Hmm.
conclusions and say, okay, let's take an existing language course, or let's take an existing political science course,
Yeah.
either blended or on demand or sync or whatever, and let's let this eye tracking or the sensory
Sensor. Yeah.
systems that we have to start actually watching students actually taking a class. So you
Hmm.
know, you've got an entire class of 30 kids and two kids volunteer and they have to sit in
Yeah.
whatever lab that you've got and actually take the class with the students at the same time with that professor. How
Yeah.
long do you think it will be before you actually start getting into measuring actual courses that actually exist on the curriculum at OU?
Very good question. So, not just as at Osaka University, but many places, I think this research is still at the fundamental level.
Okay.
And yeah, we don't have as many, say, large scale applications of the research to real classroom environments or sometimes even workplace environments. But we are still at the process of developing the system to make it easier to apply in the classroom. So it takes a few years' time. I don't know how many to give you an exact number,
Okay.
but yeah, we're not there yet.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, may I
Go ahead.
ask a question? You're basically dealing with the world of education, but the
Yeah,
concept of Society 5.0 covers much broader
yeah.
categories in education.
Yeah.
Is Osaka University involved in any of those other areas?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Dave, for bringing that up. So, yeah, this project, like you just mentioned, does not cover education only. And at our institution, we have other groups of people who are doing different, like working on different areas of Society 5.0. There is the robotics group. You may know the famous Ishiguro sensei and
Yeah.
his
Yeah. Oh,
group.
him.
Yeah, they're working.
Oh, they're at OU.
Yeah, yeah. They're just like
Really?
their building, their lab is right next to our building. Yeah.
I've seen
So
his robots and they're I don't want to say creepy, but have you
it
actually
is.
seen his robots in real life?
Yes, I've seen him himself too. Yeah,
Are they that creepy? Oh, oh, no, that's right. You can't actually say that. We might
no,
have
no,
to edit
no.
it
It's
out.
okay. Yeah, but yeah, I don't, I get your feeling. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And maybe in the future they will feel more human-like, but we're not at that stage
We're
yet. Yeah.
definitely still on the sharp end of the uncanny valley. Dave, do you know who
Right.
we're talking about? This guy Ishiguro?
I no, I don't.
Okay, he maybe I'll be able to clip some things in from him and his interviews, and I believe he speaks English, so he does
Yeah.
English interviews in American stuff, and he talk and this guy's cutting edge robotics, cutting
Okay,
edge.
may I do a quick little screen share of something I found that might
Yeah.
be
Sure, sure.
worthy of comment because it's the five Society 5.0. I don't know what the
Thank you.
but it's showing us a little bit of what Society 1.0 was, Society 2.0, 4.0. But moving down, we're starting to see the effects
Yeah.
in this chart.
True.
Is
Yeah.
so one of these looks like learning here, the upper
Yes.
left corner, and so it looks like it's affecting all of society.
Yeah, yeah, right. So the
Uh,
drone or the robotics group, we do have people in healthcare as well. And I think there were originally four groups, although I don't really remember what the other one was about. But yeah, we're covering different areas as part of different groups. Yes.
okay,
Uh,
quite interesting stuff.
Mm.
thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so go on about the other aspects that you guys are doing at OU, Mehrasa, before I interrupted yet again.
Other aspects of, you mean other research groups?
Well, okay,
Or
tell you what, there's one question that has just been burning in my head for the first little while, or for the last
shoot.
little while, I should say. I think more than me, and I couldn't read it completely because, of course, your Japanese reading is probably much better than mine. But I was reading an article about how Mext has made an announcement that at least they plan, anyway, next year to, as much as they can, completely digitize education and to bring
Mhm.
in AI chatbots. And I don't know if you've
Mhm.
heard of that. You've heard of that, I guess, or you have
Not
some comment.
Not that piece of news, but yeah, I would imagine this is going to be a trend.
Now, when I first read that, because I think for the next few weeks there are a few people that are going to be coming on the podcast who are concerned about this, if only from a selfish viewpoint. Like, for example, Paul Rain, if you've ever heard of him.
Yeah, I know
He's
him. Yeah,
You do?
we're
Okay, good.
friends.
Yeah, I'm sure you met him through Jolt Call, and he's
True.
concerned, and he's made it, not a secret that he's concerned that digital tools like this might end up forcing out um, teachers, not just by the nature of the digital tools, but the fact that these digital tools can become so attractive
Yeah.
to administrations who might not completely understand how they work and think, oh well, this is just a labor saving means. This is a budget saving means. And in conjunction with these tools being developed and their potential for actually pushing
Hmm.
humans out of work, is that something that you've considered, like when you do your research, that this is stuff that might its capacity for replacing human labor to that degree? What are you thinking in that sense when you look at the things that you do?
Right. So we are, first of all, not from that side of the
Sure,
discussion. Yeah.
I just mean in
But
general.
sure. But for most of the work that we do, our ultimate aim is to give more organized, better classified, uh, easy to see information to teachers.
Hmm.
So a lot of these things that we do is it's just meant in the end to be input for a dashboard, a teacher
Hmm.
or a student dashboard that would better visualize or better summarize all those like massive pieces of information or data existing out there. So we definitely don't think that artificial intelligence can replace human intelligence, because we should be the final decision makers as
Hmm.
Okay.
teachers or in whatever job that we are. Yeah. So all we do is just to make this process more smooth, easier. We're not going to replace any of the ends. It's just what goes on in between that's going to be better done
So would
with the
this be
use of.
better seen as an extra tool in a teacher's kit
Yeah,
for understanding students' needs, students' desires, students' abilities type of thing?
absolutely. Yeah, that's where we are aiming for. Yeah.
Mm.
And just again to continue my sort of thread as being devil's advocate, um, to what degree do you think that the things that you're working on have, and I'm sorry that I have to say the word, have any kind of big brother implications, where this screen, you're not just
Hmm.
watching this screen is literally watching
Yeah.
you.
You. Yeah.
And when people, and I'm sure that there, I mean, I'm a fairly techie guy, and
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of technology because I understand it. But there are implications for this sort of thing. I mean, if we get to the point where this computer literally knows when you're starting to fall asleep, there isn't that much that you need to do to tweak that information and send that to certain organizations. and
Mm.
and you, if you want to take this course at this university, you have to get this computer because this is part of the system, and it watches you, and it's for your own good, and it could be sold, it could be marketed that way. But just to play devil's advocate, doesn't this have, to some degree, and I'd like you to answer it so that then the people who are thinking this can be reassured, doesn't this have some kind of big brother implications in terms of its future potential misuses?
Sure. If we don't take good care of copyright and privacy issues, that scenario is definitely going to happen. But just like this technology is progressing, um, sometimes gradually, sometimes at a speed that we don't have enough time to think about the consequences, what the copyrights issues involved are, or the privacy violations are. I mean, the technology sometimes advances more quickly than
Yeah.
that other aspect does in
Mm.
many areas, not just AI. But I think more and more people, especially in the field of artificial intelligence and education, are aware of this. And there's a lot of discussion on that side. So many of the conferences that I've attended or the plenary talks related to AI in education I've listened to have always touched upon that aspect,
Good.
saying that these two should be moving in parallel fashion. It's not just we advance the technology, we don't think about the consequences, which is
Mm.
a scenario we've seen a lot in human history, right?
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. But this time, I think people are taking a more conscious approach to this, and not everybody, of course. There's people who probably don't care as much, but I would say that many do. And I've seen other friends working in areas of technology, immersive technology, for instance, which also is able to gather a lot of information and violate people's privacy, who are also very much interested and enthusiastic about discussions on privacy and copyright issues or the Big Brother
Mm.
talks.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, just as we are advancing with the technology, that aspect of privacy issues is also moving forward. But
Mm.
Good.
but this is one question we don't have a good answer for yet.
Yeah, as you mentioned it though, it's not certainly not only education that's a concern
Yeah,
in just the
yeah.
device in our hand, the
Yeah.
iPhone in our hand, and the
True.
ability, the soon coming abilities to measure our heart rate, to measure our emotional, you know,
Yeah,
upset levels, and so on and so
Right.
forth.
yeah,
And those and that data being transferred to companies, you
yeah.
know. What let's pop an ad. David seems a bit anxious right now. Why don't we pop an ad in front of him that'll help
Yeah,
calm him down? How about
Yeah.
some,
David
some
seems kind of been a bit anxious this whole week. I wonder
yeah.
what it could be. Oh yeah, he's grading until 2 a.m. every morning to finish the semester. Maybe that's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's but that's pervading. That's creeping into our lives in many
true.
ways, not just education. But
Yeah,
by speaking with you, it's obviously going to be part of our education system as well.
right. Yeah,
Um,
just as we're having more of these Internet of Things devices, IoT devices, it's going to be more prevalent as
there's
Mehrasa, I was a little concerned when I heard that your neck is kind of hurting these days. Are you okay now?
thanks for your concern, Jose.
But it's
Yeah.
totally but your face says thanks for your concern, but it was totally unwarranted. No, I'm just
No,
kidding.
no. Yeah, so just like many other colleagues, I have quite long screen hours,
Mm,
especially at the computer. And like I told you this morning, it's always been like this for me because I don't teach classes at the moment. So for the past 1 year and a couple of months, I've only been working at the computer. I
Hmm.
love working out, exercising, and now that I don't go to the gym, I do long walks at home. I bought a walking pad which I use for like a treadmill, a mini treadmill.
oh, I remember that you were at the at
Yeah,
Pan Sig. You actually tried to do a meeting
yeah,
while you were on
yeah,
that
yeah.
treadmill.
Right,
um,
right.
how
I
about
can't. Mhm. But given that how long I sit at the computer, it's not always easy to maintain a good posture. So
right?
when I get engaged or I'm in a state of flow, I'm like this,
And do you
which
does that mean that it's bad posture, or do you feel that when you're engaged, you actually are in a better posture?
No, I would say I get close to the computer screen.
Ah,
I get closer to the computer screen when I'm
Right.
too involved or when I'm
mm,
just like looking for some piece of information, trying to scan through something.
yeah,
I
like
would
this.
definitely,
Yeah,
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 Hmm.
yeah. It's probably also got to do with my eyes and my eyesight.
mm.
I wear glasses, but I'm not wearing them at the moment.
You're so
Um,
vain.
you know what? It's the blue light thing which I
Right.
don't like
Ah,
about wearing glasses when doing online meetings because I would look.
okay,
It's
now
better now, but
you're the only person I know who I can actually ask this question. Do you find those effective? Would you recommend them to people?
the blue light thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, maybe. I've never had another one like for the past 5 6 years to compare this against, so I can't quite tell how effective this is. But they say it's effective, so when I
Of course they will. They want
So
you to buy them.
you've been using them for 5 or 6 years? That long?
yeah, but
Okay.
I've got my eyes checked several times, and
Okay.
part of it was the health checkup thing. But I have this what do you call it? astigmatic
Nearsightedness?
eyes.
Astigmatism.
Yeah,
Astigmatism.
astigmatism. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't have problems seeing things per se, but I always see them a little bit with a, what do you call it, dim color, kind of like
Mm,
not as bright as they
mm,
actually are. So if
mm.
Mm-hmm.
I wear glasses, things would look clearer, better colored,
One
bright.
question, because
Yeah,
I have had people. I don't know why people think I'm an expert in these things, but it's just because I think I talk too much, and they think, well, he talks that much, he must know what he's talking about. People ask me about those blue cut
yeah, it's blue.
lenses,
Mm.
and
Yeah,
I tell them, well, I don't normally like to recommend that you go out and buy something when there might be another solution ready at hand. And
yeah.
first, Marasa, do you have a Macintosh or do you have a Windows PC?
I'm a Windows person.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know on Windows, but like what those blue lights are supposed to do is to cut down the amount of blue light that's getting straight into your eyes. And
true.
on
Mm-hmm.
the Macintosh, there's a setting that you can do to actually make the light of the light of the computer actually move towards the yellow end of the scale.
Oh,
Now, I don't know if
interesting.
that's in a Windows PC, but if anybody on a Mac is listening to this, before you buy those blue cut lenses, first just try it because they helped me, but I don't know if they'll help me any better if I actually teamed them up with
Could you
blue light
describe
lenses.
how to do that, Jose?
Okay, so system preferences. I don't know
Yeah.
if I want to screen share right now, but system preferences, and
Mm.
then in display, and
Yeah.
you're looking. Okay, specifically, I could be wrong because I'm trying to do this from memory, but you're looking for a setting called night shift.
Yes.
Night shift,
It's
and
on.
you can do a hunt in the preferences night shift, and you can set the time. I actually have mine going 24 hours a day. This thing doesn't go back to blue
Yeah,
during the day, but it was designed so that then your computer will actually be more yellowish
Mm-hmm.
for the hours leading up to the time that you're about to fall asleep. But I find that it's just actually much more comfortable when it's doing it all day. So I just set it to run all day. Night shift. Now, maybe there's something like that on your computer. I don't know.
yeah. I've seen it on my phone, iPhone
Right,
for
your
sure.
iPhone. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's they
yeah.
they brought it specifically to the Mac because it was such a
I
success on
see.
the iPhone, right?
Great.
And there might be something comparable on Windows. How
Could be.
about because you've been doing this, like you said, you've always been in front of your computer. Um, Posture. What? Uh,
Yeah.
how about RSI? Do you have any problems with carpal tunnel or your wrists or anything like that?
Could be that. Yeah, I remember many years ago when I was doing my master's in Iran, I had this issue writing at exams.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
and the
Mm.
doctors told me, one doctor I visited told me it's the writer's cramp. If you've
Mm-hmm.
ever heard of that, like there's musician's cramp, writer's cramp. I'm not a writer, but I
Mm.
probably have that. So I don't always find it easy to handwrite either.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if, yeah, well, it's all the nerve system, so
Right,
they're all connected.
right.
And a few days ago, I started feeling numbness in my
Mm-hmm.
right shoulder, and
Ew.
my thumb too started a few days ago. I visited an orthopedist, and he told me like it's no problem. He took X-rays, and he didn't even prescribe any medicine. But when I went back and told him about my shoulder, he took more X-rays and he gave me just some painkillers. But then they're anti-inflammatory, so
Yeah.
they help with the pressure on
Um,
the nerves.
if I may, because as a university student more than 30 years ago, I developed an overuse injury in my left
Mm.
hand from guitar playing because I was a music
Oh,
student. So what I did during the winter break is I went to a clinic, an occupational health clinic in Toronto, Canada, a 12, whatever, 3-hour flight from my home. And I stayed a week at this clinic and I
wow,
got training on how to manage my
nice.
body so I don't get injured. There's a lot of things you can do. I could show you them now on screen, but they're a little bit funny looking.
Yeah.
But
You know
I'll
what we'll
put
do though?
it.
You know what we'll do though, Dave? Hang on to
Yeah,
that because
yeah.
uh, I got to say, I think, sorry, Todd. Okay. Sorry,
Huh?
James. All of the other guests that we've had so far, you've
Hmm.
you've got the most fascinating thing that we've ever had. I
Oh,
have had
thank
listened
you.
on this podcast, and I would like you, because I had them promise as well too, and I'm sure Dave agrees with me. I would like you to promise that you'll come back and tell us the rest of the story.
Absolutely, I'd love to. Thank
Yeah.
you. It's been a pleasure, and I've really enjoyed it. And I didn't even feel the passage of time.
No, isn't
Yeah.
it
You know,
frightening? you know.
Absolutely.
And I wish we could stay, but pets come first, right, Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So let me thank you, and
Yes.
Good.
I want you to come back, and I'm not going to say a big goodbye because you're coming back.
And
Thank
may I
you.
say the same? Thank you very much. Very interesting, very enlightening, and very fun.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you,
Yeah.
Jose. It's been a wonderful time, and I can't wait to be back. And next time when I'm back, you should give me some tips to combat my pet phobia, animal phobia. You know?
Oh, that makes me want to continue the conversation. Why did you
Yeah.
do that? Okay, I'll
Sorry.
tell you what.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. Don't apologize. You're a wonderful guest, and we're going to have a great time in part two. But
Yeah.
it is now the
Thanks.
end of part one, so we're going to say goodbye. Good night,
Thank you
everybody.
very
Yay.
much.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
Yay.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Wow, fantastic. Okay, Dave, you got to go in 2 minutes, so we'll probably
Thank
cut it
you.
off here. But that was great, Mehrasa.
Thank you both. Yeah, I loved it. It was so enjoyable.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, it was just a lot of
Thank
fun.
you. Thank you.
What I'll do is I'll post some of the stuff on OTJ. Are you a member of OTJ?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Although I don't
I'll
really.
post some of my some of one of some of the exercises I've learned for
Ooh, that's
getting on the
great.
show.
What I found really good for RSI was a handspring. You know
Yeah.
those grip
I
trainers.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I've got a grip trainer here, and anyway,
Good.
you know what you should do, Dave? You should do a video of
Yeah.
you doing these
Hmm.
exercises.
I'll do the stuff I learned from
Sure.
guitar players, and it's all good for computers too.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I
'Cause
bet. Yeah.
it's really occupational health. You know,
Right.
welders, violin players, computer people. This is like 30 years ago. I went to this clinic. It was a 1 week deal.
I bet
It's
those
unusual at the
videos
time.
will be super popular now that people, if they saw that,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
at the end of July, they go, "Oh, that looks really good," but I don't have any time to try it.
Yes.
But if it's in the middle of August, they go, "Oh, let me try that right now," because
Yeah.
they have time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will do.
Okay.
That's great.
True.
Look,
Yeah.
I'm gonna run. It
Okay.
was a pleasure,
Thank
as they
you.
said,
Thanks very much. It was
thank
lovely
you.
talking to you.
Okay,
You
Mehrasa,
too.
why don't we just all duck out at that point, and I'll be in touch with you on Messenger and
Sure.
stuff. And this was fantastic.
Yeah.
Definitely.
He's
Thank
got to
you.
go, so let's say goodbye.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.